and welcome to the Gamon Show, Episode 3, Entertaining and Informative Moments. I'm your host, Teebs, and I'm joined this week by Gamon Gaming's own Neghr, Trollden, and DKMR Varanus. This week, we'll be talking about a few news bulletins, the Lord of the Arena turnout over the last weekend, which was a huge success, the Hearthstone World Championship announcement that came out over the past few days, the new Shaman card for Naxx expansion, our viewer topic for the week, which is which class do you plan to play in Naxx given the sneak peek cards so far? We'll continue with our weekly deck breakdown of Murloc, Warlock, and Miracle Rogue, our weekly meta-analysis, a new trivia segment for this week, and finally our giveaway. For those who aren't aware of our giveaway section so far, it's a new thing that we're doing. Basically how it works is anyone who watches the show is eligible to win 1 hour free coaching session from Gamon Gaming. All you have to do to enter into this is log into your Twitter account during the show and tweet #TheGamonShow, and make sure to follow @Gamon Gaming. And at the end of the show, we will revisit this segment and pick a winner from those people who have sent the tweet. So, Neghr, Trollden, and Varanus, why don't you guys take a minute to introduce yourselves to our viewers?
Hello, I am Neghr. I was ranked 8th in the last update set from Blizzard from the Legend rankings as of May 21st. And I've just started playing Hearthstone competitively for the past probably 3 seasons. This is the first season I've actually tried pushing for top 16. And I've recently joined Gamon Gaming.
So hello there guys, I'm YouTube content creator. My name is Trollden, nice to meet you. I'm not a great Hearthstone player. I'm on rank 4 right now, but I feel like I can bring some interesting ideas into the discussion today.
Cool, and I'm Varanus from Team Don't Kick My Robot. We're a professional NA team and been Legend pretty much every season. Peaked at rank 6 in one of the beta seasons, so excited to start talking about some Hearthstone.
Excellent, guys. Well, thank you all for joining the show. I'm glad to have you. And let's jump straight into the news. So, did any of you guys get a chance to watch the Lord of the Arena this past weekend?
Yeah, I managed to watch it. It was pretty good, actually. I like the format. I like the concept as well. It was a good change in tournaments.
Okay, Trollden?
I wasn't at home, so I couldn't watch it, but I read some feedback, and people actually enjoyed it a lot. So I'm looking forward to the second one.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to watch it either, but I did read a lot of the feedback. I thought it was kind of interesting, some of the issues they ran into, where you can't, essentially, you can't do a friend battle, or you can't do an arena draft and then do friend battle, so you're limited to 2 copies, where kind of one of the interesting aspects of arena is you can draft 6 fireballs or something crazy like that. And so it kind of, it was obviously still an awesome tournament, still a lot of fun. A lot of people really enjoyed it, but it'd be neat if Blizzard at some point implements a way to, kind of similar to Magic, where you have limited formats like draft or sealed, where you can play arena and you could draft 6 fireballs if you wanted to, because it really adds another dimension to the tournament.
So hopefully they do take note of that, because it was, to date, the biggest Twitch event for Hearthstone, with 50,000 peak viewers, even bigger than DreamHack Bucharest. So hopefully Blizzard will take note of that and help the success of the internet tournaments going forward.
But it's the most important thing to bring some attention. And when the Blizzard actually will notice that people want arena tournaments, they'll implement it. I'm pretty sure about it.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think that's exactly right on the money. And incredible turnout. So hopefully they take note of that. Let's move along to the biggest piece of news, I think, for this week, which is the announcement of the Hearthstone World Championships. So, what have you guys heard on this so far? Neghr?
Actually, there's something quite interesting. If you're in Australia and you're not from New South Wales, then pretty much you can't enter. There's actually in the terms and conditions that if you're from Queensland, Melbourne, or Northern Territory, you can't actually enter. So luckily for me, I'm in New South Wales, but that was something interesting that I read. I don't know
Okay.
why, but yeah, it was
I
pretty
think there's a
random.
couple. There's a couple states where the same. Like I assume they have some like anti-gambling laws or something probably too. I can't remember which states they were. But somebody posted on Reddit that there's like 4 states that if you live in I think Arizona was one of them. I don't remember the others. But if you're from those states, you can't qualify for the NA one either. So it's kind of interesting. Unfortunate for those people, but
Trollden,
Yeah.
have you heard anything about the EU scene for that?
Not really. The only thing I know that is that the prize pool is pretty big.
yeah, prize pool's pretty
350,000,
exciting.
yeah.
Exactly. I mean, Lord of the Arena last weekend, viewership so far was the biggest thing so far. BlizzCon, blowing away the competition in terms of prize pool. They're offering up $250,000 divided amongst the top 16 players. So basically the way the tournament format works is that America and EU each offer up 130 people into their own regional qualifier tournament, which, as you can see on this diagram, is comprised of your last call tournament, your top 16 legend players from each season from now until BlizzCon, starting with Season 1, some weekly tournaments, and some other small events. There's not a lot of information released on the Asian scene as to how to qualify. But at the end of the day, 4 players from each region will be going to BlizzCon to represent their server in a 16-player showdown for the 250,000. So, I mean, pretty big deal in terms of prize pool, and I think this is every Hearthstone player's dream to get here.
Yeah, I'm really excited to hear more about the weekly tournament and the individual tournament invites because I know that's something they've been pretty vague on. I know they said that it started in April. But then I posted on one of the forums and they clarified that they have to announce beforehand whether or not the tournament's going to give out invites. So there's not going to be any retroactive invites for like NESLs and Zotacs like that. So I'm really interested to see when they start handing out invites. I mean, I would imagine like Zotacs and NESL would be the big two as far as like weekly community tournaments that would be handing out invites. But curious to hear more details on that.
Yeah, they've been pretty secretive with that information so far, but hopefully...
They probably just haven't
they'll let us
hammered
know
out the
soon.
details yet, because they got to obviously work with the community tournament runners probably to get that set up, so probably still hammering out the details on that is what I would imagine. But
Yeah, for sure. So I know, Varanus, you've been quite active in the NA tournament scene, both with the Zotac and the NESL. I first met you actually about a month ago in one of the NESL tournaments, kind of in the
Indeed.
middle stages. Neghr obviously was a Zotac Cup winner 2 weeks ago, I believe.
Yep, that's right.
So
It's number 16.
Zotac 16, big player in those tournaments as well. Trollden, have you been taking part in any of the EU scene weekly tournaments or anything over there?
No, I just tried out one Czech tournament, but it didn't work out that well for me.
Okay.
I'm not a good player. No.
Okay. Well, I'm interested to see how this all unfolds. There's not a whole lot of information at this point beyond what we've gone over so far, even less so for the China and Korea, Taiwan regions. But definitely exciting news, and we will keep you guys up to date on this as more information is kind of unveiled to us. Let's go ahead now and talk about the new Naxx news for this upcoming week. So, new card has been released. Have you guys had a chance to take a look at this yet?
Yep.
yeah,
What are your initial thoughts? Trollden, let's start with you.
The initial thought was like, oh my god, this is so OP. But the more I think about the card, the more I have, the more doubts I have about it. It's a dead card. Like when you, for example, in top deck phase and you like top deck Rebirth, it's a dead card. You can't do anything with that.
Yeah,
yeah.
of
My
course.
initial thoughts were kind of like exactly the opposite. I kind of tried to move myself towards the other direction, just thinking about the potential the card has. Because like when I first saw it, I'm like, I come from a Magic background, and cards like this are like all the cards that a lot of players like want to try and make good, but they're never really that good. Because like Trollden said, like it's just dead on its own. You have to have a combination of something else. So like, sure, like you get tons of value if you can rebirth a Sylvanas or rebirth a Cairn, but there's going to be more often than not you're not going to have that big legendary creature on the field to rebirth. I mean, if you look at the card, like it does have some other applications. You can use it kind of like a bad shadow step with Leroy. So it could lead to. I think it has some like OTK potential. I think if it's going to be good, it's going to be in some sort of OTK combo. And then the other kind of odd application it has is it can silence buffs essentially. So like if your opponent plays Defender of Argus on one of their minions, you can rebirth that taunted minion and remove all the buffs from the minion because it just comes back as what it was before. You can also reset like a Divine Shield or something on your own minion. So I mean, obviously it was geared towards Death Rattle, and that's kind of the first place most people's minds will go is like, oh, like get the double Death Rattle out of like a Karen or Sylvanas. But like right now, I mean, if you're really going for double Death Rattle, the Baron Rivendare is probably where you want to go, and I have my doubts about him even. But I mean, I think it's an interesting card. It could, I think, if it ends up being a good card, it's going to be in some ridiculous combo that Blizzard will probably end up nerfing. But I think right now it's just not where you want to be. Fortunately, this wasn't the Priest card and it wasn't the Paladin card, although the Paladin card's not too exciting either. But so Shaman's already really good. I don't think that's going to change really with Naxx Hype. So this is just another interesting tool set.
Yeah, for sure.
I think you forgot to mention one thing, that actually we haven't seen all Naxx Hype cards yet, and we've seen 2 cards with the Death Rattle that is actually a drawback: the Dancing Swords and the Enobar Ambusher. So this card might be used as a on an enemy minion to get the effect from the Death Rattle to actually benefit you. For example, for example, if you top deck this thing and there are dancing swords on the board, you can actually rebirth and draw next card. So it's not great, but it's still something to consider.
Yeah, it is an additional application for the card, but I mean, it's similar to how you don't want to play it for your single legendary like big creatures you have. Even less so do you want to play it for the Death Rattle effects. But I mean, that is a good thing to point out. It's like kind of similar to like being able to quote unquote silence the buffs from Defender of Argus. It is one additional application, and sometimes once a card just has enough applications, then it's suddenly a good card. Like I think that's kind of like why Shadow Step, like that's another card that kind of fits in the same category as this. It's a little bit more powerful than this, but it's still a very narrow card that doesn't have a really powerful impact really, but it has enough applications. Obviously the biggest one being reusing Leroy, but then the fact that you can reuse Earthen Ring Farseer, reuse SI7 Agent, pick up an Auctioneer so you can use it on the next turn. Probably the worst application in Miracle Rogue is to reuse the Azure Drake, but it has a lot of applications in the deck, even though it is kind of a not the strongest card in a traditional sense. So yeah, like Trollden was saying, like maybe things like being able to rebirth your opponent's negative Death Rattles will be, while it's not a good reason to play the card on its own, maybe it's like just one more application, like if Dancing Swords is incredibly popular, or probably if the 5/5, like playing 2 mana draw cards really not all that fantastic unless you're in desperation mode, but 2 mana bounce one of your opponent's creatures could definitely be worth it if it's like a Rag or something turn into a sap if they only have 2 creatures on the board.
It sounds like it has a fair amount of different uses. Even if none of them are overly common, there might just be enough variety of different applications that the card sees a little bit of play. Neghr, any thoughts on this one?
Well, at first I thought it should be changed to 3 mana because of the Leroy ideas. But then, like, after thinking about it, I was like, oh, that's pretty much it. Like, because Sylvanas in Handlock has like a lot of combos, power overwhelming and stuff, and that's still like not even like mandatory in most Handlock decks. Most Handlocks actually don't even run Sylvanas nowadays. So I feel like this card will kind of like fit that same idea. Like, it'll just be like a one-off. It won't be like a guaranteed for like all Shamans. But it gives them a lot of options, which is kind of nice. You can put more themes. Because at the moment, the Shaman decks are kind of like either just a combo deck or just like the plain old standard removal deck. So this gives it like a bit more variety, which is kind of what I'm hoping they will go for, since there's not much variety in terms of decks at the moment, in my opinion at least.
It's better after the new patch with Unleash Down's nerf. Definitely.
The Shaman deck is, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, Shaman's really strong recently.
Because these Shamans were like one of the worst matchups versus Hunters. I mean, for Shamans. they couldn't defeat Hunters, and now with the nerf, they're pretty good on ladder. We see them often.
Let's keep with the Naxx stuff for now. We will talk about meta-analysis in a little bit. Definitely some promising utility for this card. We'll have to wait and see whether or not it's played very much. Let's move on to our viewer question, though, for this week, which is, which class do we see ourselves playing in Naxx, given the sneak peek so far? So as you guys were saying, there's still a few cards that haven't been leaked that will be leaked, and there's quite a few more cards that I don't think will be leaked at all. So let's go back over here and talk about the Naxx cards that are coming up. Which decks do you guys have the most anticipation for, given the sneak peeks that we've seen so far?
I guess I'll start. Oh, sorry.
Sure.
I'm actually interested in the Druid, mainly just because at the moment they don't really have like a kind of like, if you're behind you can come back like type of potential. Like swipe and stuff is usually a bit too slow, whereas this the new like seeds actually gives like a lot of like combo potential as well as like comeback potential with the deck. So I am kind of interested to like try Druid because it adds that completely new element to the class, which is kind of what I like.
So one of the matchups that right now is kind of troublesome for Druids, and we're seeing a lot of the ramp Druids specifically running double big game hunter, is the Druid versus Handlock matchup. Poison Seed obviously quite strong there. Do you have any ideas of kind of other combos in the Druid deck that you would see this card being useful for?
You could do some like token shenanigans. Like if let's say you didn't have like Power of the Wild, you could combo it with your Violet Teacher as well to like buff it up, like it's like a ghetto Power of the Wild if you didn't actually have Power of the Wild.
If
So,
you
like,
want to
you
get
could combo
super
this.
crazy,
Yeah,
if you
combo
want to
it
get super
with Power of
crazy,
the
you
Wild.
get Soul of the Forest and Poison Seeds, and then you get all the 2/2 treants, so then you play Savage Roar the next turn. But
Yeah.
it'd make for a crazy game, but it's probably not a very consistent deck.
Yeah, especially since it costs like so much mana to play, so you probably won't be getting that off.
Probably not.
It sounds a little bit ambitious, but I mean, maybe with the Naxx expansion we'll see kind of a lot more fun, kind of crazy deck themes going on. I know recently I've seen quite a few streamers who are just taking some time to play some like randomly constructed decks and things like that. So, you know, maybe those kind of wacky deck ideas are going to be a little bit more crazy and fun in the next expansion.
Yeah, I think you'll see a lot of random decks when Naxx first comes out, as people, especially if it comes out at the very beginning of a season, and everybody, because I feel like a lot of times it's the beginning of a season where people are like, feel like they have the freedom to try new decks. They feel like it's kind of a new like starting point. They're not just going right back to their Miracle Rogue again. So especially if this comes out at the beginning of the season, I think you'll see a lot of crazy decks and a lot of interesting things coming out of it. So I don't know. I mean, as far as like decks, I'd be interested. I'm not really too terribly excited about anything I've seen so far. Death Spite is probably the card I'm most excited about, just because playing that on turn 7, Grom on turn 8, and doing 18 damage in 2 turns in a control deck seems pretty crazy with 2 cards that are completely reasonable to play in control. The combo being you swing for 4 on turn 7, then you play Grom, swing for 4, break the Death Spite, and then it procs your Grom, and you can swing for 10 with the Grom. So I'm really excited about that card. I also love Warrior as a class. I feel like it gets shown up a little bit by Miracle Rogue right now, which makes me a little sad. But outside of that, like the only other like really powerful like cards that I've seen, I mean, I think like a Death Rattle Warlock deck or some sort of Death Rattle aggro deck could be really powerful. The Nerubian Egg and the I can't remember what the 1/2's name was.
Undertaker.
Yeah, Undertaker. Those 2 cards are very, very strong. Like, Undertaker, I think, is closer to a Mana Worm than he is to, say, Secret Keeper. Since Secret Keeper, most of the cards you want to play to proc Secret Keeper are cards you actively don't want in your deck. Whereas what makes these kind of cards really powerful is when you're playing cards you want in your deck. And what's ridiculous about Undertaker, it could make him even better than Mana Worm, I mean, it's kind of, might be sacrilegious, but is that the Death Rattle minions, you're playing a card that progresses your board and you're making this guy bigger. Whereas with Mana Worm, you're playing, like, spells don't really progress your board per se. They play more of a tempo game. Whereas you can play a game where you just go Undertaker, then you go Nerubian Egg, then you go Harvest Golem. Like, I mean, that's ridiculous. You got a 1-mana 3/4, and then you got a 2/3, and you got the O2. O2's not exciting, but you're playing, like, perfectly reasonable cards that are just making your 1-drop insane. And the Nerubian Egg, the reason why that card I think is really, really powerful, I think it's one of the cards that's gotten the most hype so far, is that if you just give this 1 attack, this card is ludicrous. Like, it's a 2-mana, it's a 2-mana 4/4 that kills 1-drop the turn the turn after it comes out. So it's like almost always going to 3-for-1. It gives you some protection against board clears. Like if your opponent clears your board, then all of a sudden you've got a 4/4 that's a threat. I think it's a really powerful card. It could be. I mean, it could even be a card in a control deck. So I mean, it's kind of like a weak Ancient Watcher to some extent. But if you play this and you taunt it, then they have to kill this, and then you have a 4/4 that can trade pretty efficiently with your opponent's creatures. Like, there's just a lot of really cool things you can do with this card. Obviously, I think it was intended as a drawback that it comes in as an O2, but the rate on this card is insane, and if you have enough weight, like, just taunting it really makes it live, or giving it just 1 attack with Direwolf Alpha, Shroud Sun Cleric, Defender of Argus, any of those, and most of your aggressive decks are already playing those cards. I think this card's going to see a ton of play and going to be really, really powerful. So I'm not really excited about a Death Rattle Zoo deck, but that's definitely I mean, it's hard to get excited about Zoo at this point, but it's definitely a powerful deck, I think, that could come out of this. A lot of it's going to depend on the other cards, too, is because especially when you have a card like Undertaker, who essentially says, I'm better the more Death Rattle cards you print, then we have to see those other Death Rattle cards and know exactly how good he is. But I'm pretty confident they really need just like 1 or 2 more, like 1, 2, or 3 drops of Death Rattle that are really efficient for Undertaker to just be absolutely insane, in my opinion.
Okay, so definitely some promising elements for the Zoo Warlock so far. Whether or not that's a good thing remains to be seen.
Yeah.
Trollden, what are you thinking about these new cards so far?
I love the new cards, but yeah, there was a thing you just said, that the Undertaker is good because it helps you to maintain the board control, right? So like you play the minions and you have more stuff on the board. If you look at a thing like a Mana Worm, you actually can use spells to maintain board control too. So you're like killing the stuff of the opponent's board. So it's the same thing, unless you're using spells into the face. It's either the guy has 1 minion and you have 2, or the guy has 0 minions and you have 1. So it's basically like the same thing, to me at least.
The difference is when you're playing minions, it's very proactive, whereas the spells are very reactive. And generally, you want to have a proactive, like having a proactive game forces your opponent to answer your threats. And also in Hearthstone, your minions act as can double as removal. So with Mana Worm, you're forced to play cards that are only reactive, like Frostbolt is not a proactive card. It's not, you usually don't want to use it to the face. Whereas by playing Undertaker and then playing Leper Gnome or Harvest Golem or Nerubian Egg, you're progressing. I mean, perhaps using the words progressing the board is wrong, because you're right. Like Frostbolt is progressing your board by reducing your opponent's board, but it's doing so. Like Undertaker encourages you to do it in a way that's proactive, where you're actively winning the game. Whereas Mana Worm does it in a way where you're controlling the game, you're being very reactive. Both are very strong. Especially in Hearthstone, I tend to prefer a very proactive approach, because the tempo of the game tends to be very fast, and the fact that your minions can attack any other minion means that your minions tend to double as removal spells, and so you can use your card. Your minions are not only being able to win the game, but they can also be used as reactive elements. So that's where I like Undertaker a little bit more than Mana Worm, potentially, assuming we get another good Death Rattle card or 2. Yeah, you're definitely right that they're both progressing the board in a way.
I was just thinking about something. Imagine having like a dream hand as a druid. You start you start at second, and turn 1 you play Undertaker, Innovate, Coin, Leper Gnome, and Loot Hoarder. Oh my god, the dream. The dream. Like, what can you do about that?
There's not many decks that can come back from a play like that.
Yeah, you could double Undertaker and then double Leper Gnome, and then be happy.
Right. Swipe kind of ruins that a little bit, but that'd be a little early. Be like a turn or so before swipe. But if you're in the Druid mirror match, maybe that's going to be the new meta. Druid death rattle mirrors all day long.
Death Rattle
Rush.
Zoo.
Yeah.
Alright.
Mm.
Any more deck ideas or thoughts on these next cards here?
I really hope some of the legendaries are really cool. I know some people like the Baron Rivendare's got a lot of like really cool like combo potential, but maybe there's something out there, but I think he's like kind of slow. So I'm really excited to see like what some of the other legendaries are that come out to see if they. Obviously, legendaries are some of the most exciting cards in the game. They tend to make them really unique. So I'm excited to see what other effects they put on cards.
The Stampeding Kodo value on Baron is pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, that's the bit of value there. I will kill your 4-drop.
But I don't think that Baron Rivendare is that slow, actually. I mean, if you have the board control already with the Death Rattle cards and you play him on turn 4, you can get amazing value.
Yeah, I guess slow maybe not the right word. It's just he depends on other cards, and I don't think there's enough other cards. Like best case scenario, you get like Karen Death Rattle, Sylvanas Death Rattle are probably like two of the ones that are most cited as the best. I think like the Nerubian Egg will be the Nerubian Egg probably has the most potential with him. Just as because it comes down for 2 mana and he gives you 4/4s. But again, it's kind of like not quite as this guy is definitely better than Rebirth in my opinion, but kind of the same scenario where it's like sometimes this guy's going to be a 4 mana 1/7. Do you want a 4 mana 1/7 in your deck? Not really. Like, is the upside that you can potentially get out of him good enough that you'd rather have this than a Yeti in your deck? I think the answer is no to that right now. But I could be completely wrong. And again, this is one of those cards, though, that in the future could be incredible, is because he kind of gears off. He's kind of like Undertaker. The more Death Rattle minions they print, the better this card gets. It only takes one ridiculous combo for this guy to be really good. Because it is a really powerful effect. It's just there's got to be that one combo. I mean, I guess you could play this guy with Rebirth. And then you get, like, the Death Rattle effects. You Rebirth the guy, get 2 Death Rattle effects, 3 Death Rattle effects for the Rebirth. But
And what about Priest Rush deck?
Priest Rush?
Priest Rush with 2 Inner Fires, 2 Mind Blasts, 2 Holy Fires, Weapon Gnomes, Baron Rivendare, and all of that stuff. 2 Loot Hoarders for card draw. 1, let's say, Acolyte of Pain. That might be insane. You know, just you drop the Baron Rivendare, you can just give him Inner Fire 7/7.
Pretty good. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I mean, is Interfire the one that flips attack in a defense?
Yeah, matches them.
It matches them. Yes.
Okay, it matches. Yeah, I mean, having a 7/7 that's pretty legit. I mean, Interfire is one of those cards. It's not. I mean, that's a 4 mana 7/7 is definitely good. But again, like Interfire is one of those like narrow cards. It's like you're definitely gonna like you'll win a game, but you also lose 3 games for every game you win because of it. But I don't know, maybe it'll be consistent enough. I don't know.
I would love to check this out. I'm actually gonna, as soon as Curse of Naxx is gonna come out, I'm gonna try out this deck.
It sounds
the
really
priest deck's
fun.
already out though. You can play the Morgushan Warden.
Yeah, there you go.
And then you give it Taunt as well.
Yeah, but
Has to
like
attack 7/7.
the Morgushan Warden doesn't have the enough combo potential like the Baron Rivendare with the Death Rattle effect. For example, Lebanon and all that stuff. If you drop him on turn 4, or for example, quote him out on turn 3, and you have something on the board already, you can double the Death Rattle effect. And Priest Rush deck is something that people play sometimes nowadays. And I've actually seen it. And with the 2 Mind Blasts, for example, it's 10 damage that you cannot avoid. It might work out. We'll have to see. If there's gonna be a deck in the meta as a Priest Rush deck, you heard it here first, guys. I've invented it.
I'll be waiting for you to popularize that one when Naxx drops. Alright, guys, that's our viewer topic for this week. If you are interested in getting your topic on the show for next week, be sure to hit our Gamon Gaming forums, post up whatever it is you want us to talk about, and we will take a look and feature some on the upcoming shows. Moving along now, let's head back to the Forge and talk about our deck lists. So the first deck list this week is the Murloc deck. This is one that was popularized by Dakraiz of Gamon. It's somewhat based on one of Puffin's earlier lists that he was playing on ladder a little while ago. Have you guys had much experience with Murloc on ladder recently?
Yes. I saw some Murloc, like Warlock Murloc decks lately. They're pretty good in my opinion.
They're definitely snowbally, and they have a lot of potential. Neghr, have you played this list or seen this list?
I've actually, this entire season, my entire grind, I've never actually seen anyone play Murlocs. Like, not even once, the entire time.
This reminds me, by the way, I was playing Randy Win deck, and I encountered like the exact same deck as you have right now. And the person was wrecking me by Murlocs, and I decided to use mine, the thing that puts random minion on the board.
Oh, Mind Games.
Mind Games, and it put the 3/3 Murloc Wall Leader. And it wrecked me.
So you just wrecked yourself.
That's hilarious. That's like the
Damn,
worst possible way to do it. That's like, here, have this buff.
Oh.
And Varanus, how about you? Have you played against many Murlocs?
I may have played against Murlocs maybe once or so. It's really not that popular right now. It's pretty bad against Rogue just because Rogue has so many ways to remove the minions, and the minions are it's very much a snowball deck. You need all the minions, like they interact with each other. It's like if they kill your War Leader or kill your Tidecaller, it's like you just fall kind of flat. Whereas the like standard Zoo deck doesn't necessarily need almost every card in the standard Zoo deck kind of can stand alone. Whereas it can't with Murlocs, so the Murlocs are particularly susceptible to all the Rogues removal. That's kind of where the Puffins or I'm a Murgle, like that list, this is based off, kind of became popular as it kind of toned down the Murloc elements and just played the really good Murloc cards. Like you're not playing Cold Light Oracle, the 1/1 for 1 mana that gives all your Murlocs +1 attack. Well, he leads to some of your most explosive plays, but at the same time, he's one of the weakest cards in the deck because you're just playing a 1 mana 1/1, and it's bad. It's terrible by itself. It's an angry chicken if you don't have the other Murlocs in play, and then if it just gets killed by like a Shiv, your opponent just 2-for-1'd you and killed one of your combo pieces, which is just, it loses you the game more times than not.
Yeah.
So I haven't seen too many Murlocs. Aggressive decks in general are in a fairly good place right now, with Handlock and Miracle Rogue being really popular. I would say Warlock aggro decks, especially like Warlock aggro, standard Warlock aggro, and even more so Murloc aggro, are at a disadvantage to the meta right now, just because they do rely on board presence so much, and the Handlock and Miracle Rogue can really manage board presence very well. What they're weak against is that kind of bursty, aggressive decks like Paladin aggro and Hunter aggro that really use their minions as burn spells like Wolf Rider and stuff like that, and then restock their... there's some Warlock variants that have kind of gone towards that route, playing like Bluegill Warriors and Wolf Riders and running like Power Overwhelming Leroy. I know there's like that OTK Warlock deck too that was out there that really was all about getting Arcane Golem, double Power Overwhelming, Faceless Manipulator. So like the decks are going, like the aggressive decks are much more bursty, much more burn decks now in order to counteract Handlock and Miracle Rogue. And I think in a meta of Handlock and Miracle Rogue, like Murlocs and Warlock aggro in general kind of suffers a bit.
Mm-hmm.
They're always going to be. It's always going to be popular though, because it's one of the cheapest effective decks. Like it's still a great, like standard Warlock aggro especially is just a really, really solid deck and really easy to build as well.
I've definitely suffered a game defeat myself this season from that double Power Overwhelming Arcane Golem in a game where I thought I was playing a standard Zoo, and oh man, that'll catch you off guard sometimes.
It's pretty humbling.
Yeah.
I saw a Miracle Rogue who didn't have Leroy, and he was using Arcane Golem. And I was like, what?
Here's all the mana, but it doesn't matter because you're dead this turn.
Yeah.
So here, as you were saying, Varanus, this is a bit more towards the zoo angle than the traditional Murloc decks that we've seen in seasons past. Do you think that this deck is significantly stronger than those other ones? I mean, you mentioned that the 1/1's not very good, but do you think blending the two is kind of more successful, and that's why this deck is becoming a little bit more popular on ladder, or at the higher ranks anyways?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think the combination, I think the blended version definitely is a lot stronger because you're kind of adopting the more the stronger individual minions and giving up like the 1/1 and stuff. Like running the Doom Guard's an amazing card, gives you a ton of burst potential, a ton of endgame finishing potential. I don't think the standard. I think it's one of the cards like Doom Guard, Direwolf Alpha. I mean, I think all the Murloc decks ran Knife Juggler, maybe like Argent Squire, Abusive Sergeant. Like all those kind of cards are cards you don't necessarily see in the like straight Murloc decks, and those cards are very, very good value. Much more so than playing like Grimscale Oracle. While Grimscale Oracle can give you the like turn 1 Tidecaller Coin Tidecaller, turn 2 Oracle, turn 3 War Leader plays or whatever. You can still get pretty close to that without playing Oracle and be a lot more consistent at the same time. So I know I'm a Murgle was doing amazing with this deck. I think last season or the season before that, it was kind of where this deck first came from, and then I guess Dak kind of adjusted it here some. But I mean, I think it's a very strong deck.
Yeah. One of the nice perks I've seen with this, I played this on ladder a little bit myself, and it's very fast, so your games are over in a matter of a couple minutes, win or lose.
Yeah,
9 times out of 10. So
you're dead when you're dead, and you've won when you've won, which is nice.
Exactly. So I mean, if you do maintain a decent win rate with this deck, which it's very capable of doing, you'll climb quickly if you're climbing, which is kind of a nice feature for ladder, especially if you're playing on a limited time schedule. All right, well, let's move along to the Miracle Rogue here.
I got the best deals anywhere.
So
I hate Miracle Rogues lately.
It's the new Hunter. 2 OP, please and herf.
have you played this deck much, Trollden, or is it something that you end up playing against a lot and you just hate it for that reason?
Oh, I have love-hate relationship with this deck. I mean, when I played, I actually love playing it, but I always lose because I play against handlocks. It's 90% handlocks, and usually I lose unless I manage to deal enough damage in the early game. And then when I start playing some other decks, I get Miracle Rogues against me, and I lose. What the? I can't stand this deck anymore. And I don't have Advent Van Cleef to finish this off. Like, Advent is an amazing card to have in a Miracle Rogue deck, and I don't have it. And the replacements are really bad. So, yeah, this is pretty weird, by the way. I see the Big Game Hunter in this deck.
This is my version.
Haven't seen Big Game Hunters in the Miracle Rogue deck.
Neghr, why don't you tell us a bit about your tech picks in this one?
Yeah, so I run double conceal. I know most run 1 conceal, but if you notice, I don't have Assassin's Blade and I only run 1 Cold Blood. So actual damage-wise, compared to other Miracle decks, I'm actually on the lower side. So I actually rely on having my minions kill them. So I actually need to get damage in from my minions to actually achieve lethal. And I use 1 Sinister and 1 Cold Blood. This mainly because sometimes you're in that spot where you don't have anything to start your combo off. You don't have your prep, you don't have deadly, you don't have your backstab. So Sinister Strike helps with that. And also handlock was a problem. So with Big Game Hunter and Sinister Strike, you can kind of burn through the taunts. Sometimes if it gets to that stage, you can burn through the taunts. Because Sinister Strike's just 1 damage less than Cold Blood comboed. So it's still pretty good in that regard. And yeah, I didn't like Assassin's Blade. I felt it was too slow. I only have 1 SI and 1 Farseer as well. So yeah, those are kind of the weird choices I've made. But it's worked for me so far.
I like the Sinister Strike, even though I've used 1 in my deck and it often was a dead card. It's an amazing card for comboing.
Yeah, definitely
Yeah.
good to start those off, and drawing with Auctioneer as well, of course. Brandis,
Yeah.
what do you think about this list?
I think it's interesting. Like, I mean, I think Assassin's Blade is an interesting card to talk about. I loved that card in the deck for a while, but I stopped playing it. I think it's really, really good in the mirror match. It's really good in the warrior match. It's really good in the druid match. There's a lot of matchups where Assassin's Blade is ludicrously good because it allows you to push a lot of damage. I mean, it's what, 4 times, it's 12 damage by itself. You put a deadly poison on it, it's 20 damage. Like, a lot of times it's like lethal in a bottle practically. So in the slower kind of control matchups, it's a really, really powerful card. But it's a dead card in a lot of the other matchups, and it gets like handlock. Like, sometimes you can push, it costs a little bit too much. You need kind of you need to push damage pretty early against handlock, and it costs kind of a lot to really play against handlock. It's like you play it on turn 5 and they already have taunts up and you can't really hit their taunts. So I mean, it can give you like really good blade flurry plays if you can like double deadly poison, do 7 to everything, but that doesn't happen very often. So like I kind of I agree with the exclusion of Assassin's Blade right now. It's also not very good against the aggressive decks. Big Game Hunter, I've seen him in and out of Miracle Rogue builds before, and when I kind of first started playing Miracle Rogue, I was playing one in there, and I liked it a lot. Like, if you do expect a lot of handlock, Big Game Hunter is really good. I don't play him right now. I haven't been seeing quite as much handlock on the ladder, which kind of surprises me a little bit. But if handlock's like really popular, he's definitely a card that is good in the deck. He also has a lot of applications in the mirror match, because a lot of times in the mirror match you're trying to push early damage with Cold Blood, and so you can Big Game Hunter their cold-blooded minion in a lot of circumstances where they expect you to have like an Eviscerator, or counting. They've seen one Eviscerator already. You have to have the second Eviscerate to kill it, and then you've got another answer to their cold-blooded minion. They're kind of counting on you not having that answer, and then you've got the Big Game Hunter. So I mean, I think he's definitely got a lot of applications in the meta right now. I think it really, whether you play him or not, hinges a lot on how much handlock you expect. But I think he's definitely pretty solid on the deck. Sinister Strike I think is pretty cool. I'd have to play it to like really get a feel for how consistent it is, but as others of you have already mentioned, like, sometimes you really need to get your combos going, and you don't. I mean, I've had to make embarrassing plays like Conceal SI7 Agent on turn 4 or something like that against aggressive decks, because I know Conceal's a terrible card, and I really need the SI7 Agent to proc the SI7 Agent. Whereas like playing Sinister Strike SI7 Agent's a lot stronger than you're actually getting an effect out of your 1 mana card. So, and I mean, it does have applications like Neghr mentioned against handlock, where you can go over the taunts with it. Not running Malygos, so you don't have the like super burst from Sinister Strike with Malygos. But I think the decks, I found the decks probably serve best without Malygos.
Let's transition this into the meta-analysis. So when you're playing Miracle Rogue, kind of what are your top decks that you're looking out for, and how are those matchups going for you?
Oh, well, you're just looking to see if there's that stupid-ass Paladin deck that just, kills you, and you can't actually play the game. It's like, because with the Shockadin thing that it just came out with, like, as soon as like there's any of those aggro decks, and also I know a couple of other rogues at the top have been playing like a face rogue deck to like counter all the Miracle Rogue decks.
Yeah.
So if there's like any sort of aggression like in the meta at the moment, you pretty much can't play Miracle. Like, your win rate against those decks is like way below like 40%. So you're not going to be moving anywhere. So like if soon as you see that, then you can't really play Miracle. But as soon as you see like control decks, like even Handlock, I'd still say I'd play Miracle into Handlock.
Especially with that BGH in there.
Yeah, like pretty much as soon as you see control decks played, then Miracle will crush them, because of the fact that Miracle pretty much just like the counter to like any type of control deck, just due to the fact that given enough time, like Miracle Rogue just like will win pretty much. Like with such a high like win rate compared to like any other deck against control. Like if you fight control against control, Miracle Rogue will have the highest win rate out of like all the decks, which is why in my opinion it's so powerful at the moment, because of that win rate. That's why it's seen so much on the ladder, because of the win rate that it has against other control decks.
Yeah, and control decks tend to be the more consistent decks, so people usually go to those for ladder play, and then this beats those. So, kind of the term for that is it goes over the top of the control decks. Like if you're familiar with like Magic, a lot of times the way you beat the other control decks is you play the insane combo, like play your giant like 10 mana 8/8 or whatever, or not 10 mana 8/8. It's not a good example, but some ridiculous combo that's like ludicrous in any kind of meta with aggressive decks. And like this deck has the biggest combo you can play.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that Miracle Rogue has kind of shifted the meta towards this bursty finisher style? Because we're seeing that in other decks. These bursty shamans and handlocks now. I mean, it's always been a thing, but more and more frequently, like you're seeing almost every handlock deck running these Leroy power overwhelming faceless finisher combos. Do you think that's something that's really popular right now because of Miracle Rogue, or for some other reason?
I can take this question. I think it's not the Miracle Rogues that did it, but the Leroy. Leroy is a bad card in my opinion. Like bad design card. It should be immune to spells or something like that. So just a fireball with a drawback, with a little drawback.
Yeah, Leroy is.
Yeah.
The Neghr is definitely probably target number one right now for Blizzard, I would have to imagine, as far as uninteractive and powerful cards go. I think a lot of the bursts, like in the handlock, the Leroy Faceless Power Overwhelming, I think that was amazing in that deck even before Miracle Rogue took hold. That's just a really easy combo to run in that deck, and since you're drawing a lot of cards with that deck, and you tend to hold a lot of cards, like that's just a fantastic combo. But I do think some of the other bursts you're seeing is because of Miracle Rogue. In order to kind of counteract that, like you see a lot of, like there's been this Shaman tokens deck that's been popping up a reasonable amount recently, and then Druid tokens has been pretty popular, and those decks really have come about or regained popularity because of their ability to burst down. They're aggressive decks that can burst down Miracle Rogue as well and win before Miracle Rogue can, since Miracle Rogue tends to burst more but a little later in the game.
Yeah. Are you referring to Trump's kind of Bloodlust token deck that's been floating around the last week or two?
Yeah, I mean the one with it's basically Shaman with Violet Teachers and Bloodlust. Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's, of course, the DKMR Angry Shaman deck, which was, I think,
Indeed.
designed in part to run train on those Miracle Rogues. I think, Neghr, you actually took that game off me in the Zotac with that Angry Shaman. Oh, man, that's not a fun matchup.
So, well, yeah, I needed a counter to Miracle Rogue, and there are plenty of counters out there. It's just that they're not run on the ladder. So, in my opinion, you don't really need to nerf it. It's just... it has its place in the meta, in my opinion.
What do you think about, for Leroy specifically, what do you guys think about the potential of giving the whelps taunt? Because if you go back to the theme of the card, and you think back to the original Leroy Jenkins video, he runs into the whelps, and his team, his guild, has to save him. So it makes sense that you would need other minions or other sources of damage to deal with the whelps. Do you think that would help alleviate any of the burst problems with Leroy? In essence, I mean, you couldn't combo with an empty board.
I think the problem with Leroy is that if you nerf him, you probably make him unplayable unless you completely change him. Is because you can't combo at the point where his whelps have taunt. You can't combo him really with anything. Is because most of the combos involve replaying him, and so every time you replay him, they're going to get another taunt. So you have to have like 2 to 3 ways to deal with a taunt. It depends on how many whelps get taunt. But you'd have to have way too many ways for it to be practical, like to use him as a combo piece. Mm-hmm. And at that point, he's just a Reckless Rocketeer, he's basically exactly like Reckless Rocketeer to the extent that he does more damage for better mana, but the drawback's so severe it kind of puts him in the same category, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And what about 7/2 with the same mana cost and battle cry, but immune to spells?
I think the only way you could make him like a 5/2. That's probably the main change you could change, in my opinion. Like
I
make
think
him a 5.
I think upping his mana cost would do a lot too, since the efficiency of it means a lot. Kind of the same way Unleash the Hounds combos go. I think Trollden, if you make him a 7/2, part of the problem with that is you make him a better finisher in Paladin, Aggro, and Warlock. While being worse in the combo. You do remove the combo potential, so maybe it's okay having that, but I think he'd be a little overpowered as a finisher still, and more traditional aggressive decks.
All right. So what do you guys think, before we move out of this meta-analysis, what do you guys think about other decks on the ladder? We were talking about the DKMR Angry Shaman being something that, you were pulling out in tournaments specifically to counter Miracle Rope, but something that's not so viable on ladder because it doesn't have such a good matchup against quite a few other decks. What are you guys seeing on ladder right now, either that you've been playing or that you've been seeing other people having success with? What would you consider top tier?
It wasn't played on ladder. It was, I just wanted to say this because it's pretty amazing. There was a deck on Czech tournament. The guy played Paladin with 2 Big Game Hunters and 2 Pandas, the 3/2 that returned the card back into your hand. And the dude was actually countering the handlock deck. It was made specifically to counter the handlock deck. It was amazing. It was so funny to watch because every time handlock plays something, the dude just plays Big Game Hunter, then returns back him into the hand, and the handlock cannot do anything. It was really funny.
That's cool.
Actually, yeah, back when G-Wells was playing, I know Reynad made something like very similar to what you said, just to like counter him, because like they were queuing each other a lot. So he had like something very similar, like a Paladin deck, just designed just to beat handlock. So yeah, it's pretty cool. I like the idea concept.
I've been seeing a lot of Zoo. I don't know why Zoo suddenly came back with such a vengeance, but it's Warlock in general. Whether it's, I'd say when I encounter Warlock, it's like 65% of the time Zoo and like 35% of the time handlock. Warlock's been out there a ton. I mean, I still see Miracle Rogue, and like I said, I've been seeing those like token decks. But I'm happy to see. I've been playing Miracle Rogue mostly on the ladder, and I'm happy any day to play against Zeus. So I've been happy with that.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and do this this little trivia segment. So this is kind of just a fun thing that we're working on for the show. Basically, the rules format here is that each of you guys are going to get one yes or no question in the event that multiple people get the correct answer. Or if nobody gets the correct answer, then we'll have a tie-break round, which is kind of you give a numerical answer, and the closest one to the correct answer will win. All right, so let's go straight into it and start with Neghr. So, your question is, if you have a full board and an automated minion summon activates, such as an Imp Master, will card effects that activate when a minion is summoned trigger? For example, Knife Juggler.
No.
That is correct. Alright, number 2 goes to Trollden. It's funny, you were talking about this card earlier, actually. If you use Mind Games to summon an enemy minion from their deck, and you receive a Wild Pyromancer, will the Wild Pyromancer's ability trigger?
Yeah, I had it in funny lucky moments.
Okay. So yes is your answer?
Yes, I'm cheating.
Yeah, Trollden would know this.
Correct again. Okay, and the third one, Varanus, this is for you. If you attack your opponent's hero with a water elemental and remove armor but do not reduce his hit points, will he become frozen?
Yes, I think they changed that recently.
Yeah, in one of the last patches.
Yes.
All right, correct. That is patched in fact. It used to not work. You guys are on top of this. So, everybody has given the correct answer. Let's go ahead and do the final tiebreak question. So I'm just going to pose the question. I'll let you guys each give your answer in turn, and we'll see if... maybe you guys just all get it right away. How many cards are in a complete collection that aren't available from packs? So if you have every card in the game, and you exclude all the cards from packs, how many cards are there?
250.
That's a weird
184.
question.
Neghr?
Yeah, 250 is my guess.
250? Okay, Varanus, you said 184?
Yep.
And Trollden, how many cards not available from packs?
Are you kidding me? How can I know that? Well, let's say around 240. something like
240.
that. Yeah,
Wait, how many cards are actually in the game?
around
Okay.
500, I think.
So Neghr 280.
Ah,
Varanus, you said 184?
Yep.
Okay. Oops. And Trollden, you said 200?
220, I think.
220?
I'm not sure what I said already.
All right.
oh, doesn't matter.
Okay. So, Varanus, you're the closest. The correct answer for this one is 137. There are
Wow.
90 cards, basic cards, 10 for each class. There are 43 neutral basic cards. And then, of course, your last 4 are the 2 promotional cards, the Elite Tauren Chieftain and the, what's the Gelbin Mechatork guy?
Yeah.
And then
There's
you've got
also
your
the-
2 reward cards, which are your Captain's Parrot and your Old Murkai. So 137 non-expert pack cards in the game currently.
Well,
All right.
crushed.
A little bit,
You-
a little
you
bit
had-
high
you
on
had-
the expectations there.
You had to say that you were counting the doubles, and you would win actually.
Counting the doubles. Oh,
You should be like
You're really
smart
close.
about that things.
okay. So Neghr, if you want to get technical and claim you're counting each card twice, you are almost right on the money. I'm gonna go ahead and give this this trivia to Varanus, though. Congratulations, you've won all the bragging rights
Sweet.
for this episode. So our giveaway to the viewers today. Let's check hashtag the Gamon Show on Twitter. All right, and our winner for this week is Jesse Rayner. I will respond to your tweet. If you're still available in chat, send us a private message to this channel on Twitch. If not, I will contact you via Twitter. And you have won 1 hour of coaching from Gamon Gaming. Congratulations. That's it for us this week. We'll give you guys a chance to do some shoutouts. From me, shout out to Gamon Gaming for helping put this show on, getting all the art, coordinating everything. Thank you guys, Trollden and Varanus, as well as Neghr and DKMR, for having you guys on, being on the show, spending some time to help us out and talk to the viewers. And it's always great to have you. Thank you very much. Neghr, any shoutouts from you today?
It's mainly a shout out to my stream, like my viewers, and I'm just starting out, so I really appreciate it. You guys watching. If any of you guys are interested, I stream on Twitch, twitch.tv/Neghr. So please come check it out.
All right. Trollden, any shoutouts from you today?
Shoutouts to my subscribers. I love you all, guys. My channel is youtube.com/Trollden1337. Yeah, I've made this channel long ago, like maybe in 2008 or something. So, yeah.
All right. Varanus, any shoutouts for you today?
Yeah, I've got several. Just want to again big shout out to I play for the professional NA team. Don't Kick My Robot. Big shout out to them. Also want to give a shout out to our team's sponsors, Hearthstats. It's a great program to keep track of your statistics in Hearthstones. Gunner Optics, which makes eyewear to protect your eyes while you're playing video games, and then 2P destination for all gaming content and home of the DKMR Invitational, which is a tournament coming up here later in June. That you guys are probably going to hear more about. I also want to give a shout out to our partners that host our article content from Don't Kick My Robot, iHearthU, BlizzPro, Gosu Gamers, Hearthstone Players. I've written a bunch of articles for BlizzPro and Hearthstone Players that you guys should check out. And you can always check out the team on Twitter at Don't Kick My Robot. Check me out at Twitter at Varanus, and check me out at Twitch at twitch.tv/Varanus. Really appreciate you guys having me on here. Really enjoyed it.
All right. Thank you guys. Thanks to all the viewers for checking this out. The VODs will be up either later this evening or tomorrow afternoon. We will be live at the same time next week, Tuesday, 9 Eastern. And in the meantime, on Sunday we will be hosting our team effort show, which is a bunch of people from Gamon Gaming get onto a Skype call, play one deck, and argue over which plays are correct, when to trade, when to go face, and just have a great time playing a deck amongst the team. So, hope to see you guys then, and see you next week for the show. Alright, thanks everybody.
All right, cheers. See ya.
Bye.